Welcome everybody to another edition of Trucker Tools Talks. Every week, we're interviewing people from across the trucking industry for business tips and updates on what's happening in the market. Today, we're joined by Chace Barber, CEO of Edison Motors. Thanks for speaking with us today, Chace.
Yeah, no, for sure. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. To get things started, can you tell me a little bit about how you got started in the trucking industry and the trucking company you previously owned?
Well, the whole family has been background as truckers. I remember riding in my granddad's truck as he drove around, and yeah, I put myself through university driving a truck. I drove truck before school, and I had a job offer after university, and it was $45,000 a year after 4 years of university. So me and the business partner, we said, like, well, hell, made more than that driving a truck just in the summer. Like, we moved drilling rigs in Alberta. It's good money. We made more money working in the summer as students than they offered to pay me for a whole year's worth of work. So we put the last of our student loans together and we bought a truck and decided to be owner operators. We ended up with a 1969 Kenworth that we bought truck and trailer for $4,000, and we spent the last semester of university rebuilding this thing.
Wow. Can you tell me a little bit more about that truck?
Oh yeah, she's got quite a story. So the old boy that bought it off of Bob Murphy, he bought that truck brand new back in 1969, and he drove that truck for over 40 years until he retired. I think he retired at 67, 68, and he bought it when he was in his early 20s. So that shows you how long. And
wow.
So this one truck existed as a logging truck on the west coast of BC, and you know what? We bought that truck, we worked here, we restored it. That was the deal he made. You guys allowed to buy that truck and trailer as long as I restored it and worked it the same way he did and kept her going, but I think we did.
So do you still have that truck, or
yeah, she still goes to work. She still hauls logs.
So you'd mentioned something about your grandfather. What was the truck that he drove? Do you remember?
Oh, it's been a few trucks over the years. He ran gravel. He had remember the one that I loved was a 1967 needle nose Kenworth, and then he had, I think, another 83 Kenworth, and then he moved more into the heavy equipment side with his business. And
so are you still doing the trucking side? Are you still doing the trucking business?
You know what? I don't have his time anymore. Edison Motors is, as much as I love driving, it's I just don't have the time. I'm focused on this company and what we're building.
Can you tell me a little bit about Edison Motors? What makes it so unique?
Okay, so Edison Motors, I'm a big proponent of the electric vehicles in the fact that they have lots of torque, increased reliability. You're not blowing out U-joints, drive shaft, transmission. Those wear and tear components are huge for logging. You blow U-joints, drive shaft, rear ends, you're shock loading these things. Logging is not an easy thing. So I had the idea is like electric makes sense, but the battery technology isn't there. So what we're going to do is take that motor that's in the truck, attach an alternator basically on the back to turn it into a generator, run that power through the batteries, through some capacitors or shunts, through a big lithium battery pack, and then into the drive motor. So we have the advantage of the regen braking, the holdback power, the torque, the lower driveline components to blow out, with the advantage of that you still have the diesel to be able to drive as long as you want.
So you're mentioning, or you mentioned that you guys designed or built this. Is that kind of part of your business, is manufacturing? Is there something in particular that you manufacture?
Yeah, we manufacture light towers right now.
Okay.
So we do solar light towers. They're 100% solar, and we came up with the idea about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and probably closer to 2 years now. And so we designed this one. We were like, this is dumb. Why are you putting diesel in light towers when it's just light? We could put a bunch of solar. So we put a absolute ton of solar panels on a trailer, ran it through a bunch of batteries, an inverter up to the light tower, and you don't put any diesel in whatsoever. And Finning liked it and Caterpillar liked it, so they marketed it as if they license it through us.
Wow.
So we build them, and then we sell directly to Cat, and they put it into the Cat rental store and rent them out.
It's really neat.
It saves like $2,000 a month on diesel per light tower, and like the rental cost is like $2,000. So if you're gonna if you're going to rent a light tower for like 1,500, but you're still going to put in 1,500, 2,000 worth of diesel.
Fuel, yeah.
Yeah, we kind of got our trucking company. We were over in Alberta. And it wasn't always logs, so we got into hauling like some generators and all that. And then we're like, hey, why don't we start installing some of this stuff and move past just trucking it for the customer? Why don't we truck it and do the install for the customer?
Yeah.
And we did, and then we're like, well, no, we had this one project. It was our first project, and that's what gave us the idea for the electric truck. So there's this First Nations reserve way up in northern Canada. They ran 100% off diesel. They ran a 90 kilowatt generator because there'd be a big peak load. Everyone would come home at the same time around 5, 6 in the afternoon, turn all the lights, the microwaves, everything would turn on all at once.
Cooking dinner.
Yep, exactly. Firing up the TV, the hot water. So what we did is, and this is Eric's, he's my electrical engineering genius. He's my business partner. Came up and said, why don't we size a battery? Let that battery take that peak load demand, put in a bunch of solar that can connect in through that battery. So the solar, the battery had worked together. We sized that 90 kilowatt generator down to a 35 kilowatt generator. The whole system, it cost us with a brand new generator, solar, batteries. It was like $110,000, but they saved $80,000 worth of fuel in the first year.
Wow.
A year and a half to pay for a whole new generator. And that guy came out to us. He's like, this is the first time that I've ever heard it quiet. And 6 months later, all the deer came back. There was more wildlife, like the whole thing, because it was quiet during the daytime with the solar. And they could say the battery would keep it quiet till like 7 o'clock at night. And then the generator would fire up as background noise. So then we had the idea, well, a truck is a lot the same as a community. There's a huge peak power demand on a truck. When you're loaded and you're going up a hill or you're starting out from a light, there is a ton of power requirements. So what you got is you got these X15s or DD15s, you got a 15-liter engine to shove that 100,000 pounds off the line.
Right.
Once it gets up to highway speed, you're only really using like 200 horsepower out of that 600 horsepower engine.
Cruising.
You're cruising, you're not burning it, you're backed off on the throttle, but you're still have the 15-liter engine fuel consumption. So we realized we could do the same thing with a truck that we did for this community. Let that battery take that peak load demand, shove that truck off the line, and then the smaller generator keeps it flowing. It so we're taking it from a 15 down to an 11 or a 9-liter engine. And a mechanical transmission is terrible for delivering the torque in that peak load demand too.
So are they direct drive? You said mechanical transmission. Are you using direct drive for the electric side of it?
Yeah, we're going to be going with electric axles. We're just talking with Meritor right now, actually. I just finished up an email with the chain with them. And yeah, we're looking like putting the Meritor 14E axles, sticking those under, as long as we can get it with supply chain, stick those under. Right now, I've got a frame mounted unit on the prototype that's just a test base, because I'm mainly concerned about testing the generator flowing through the batteries. Essentially, we've had to do the rectification of the power from the AC to the DC and the battery side. So we've had to develop a rectification unit, and that's what we want to test on the prototype. And then the full-on version will have electric axles, so there's no drivetrain whatsoever.
So what does this mean for the drivers? Is there anything, is it like a true hybrid where there's no switches for them to flip or anything like that? They step on the gas.
They step on the throttle. Yeah. That's it. And it's not an automatic, it's not a standard. There is no transmission. It's just, so I think it should solve a lot of the issues with truckers that have been driving a long time hate automatics because they don't like the feel. You don't have the feel in an automatic. You can't tell it to do what it wants. I'm thinking with these things, it'll solve the issue of they don't want guys grinding teeth. It's getting harder and harder to find guys who are real good on a manual. But so it's kind of the best of both worlds. You could take somebody, throw them into it, but somebody that wants full control still has that full control because they're at peak efficiency torque all the time. They're always at their peak spot where they would need to be. So
you've designed it with the driver in mind.
Well, yeah, we are drivers ourselves.
Probably helps.
Well, that's the thing. Is like we got a good team of like 15, 20 guys here working now, and We're all drivers and mechanics. We only have 2 engineers. That's to make sure we don't electrocute ourselves or blow anything up. But the whole trucks are being designed by mechanics and by drivers. Because how many times have you been working where you're like, what engineer designed this? And so our whole philosophy is we're taking the engineers out of the equation. Okay, structural critical components, great to have an engineer. That's what they do great. I don't need an engineer to decide where every single cup holder is going to be in that truck.
Yeah. So I've heard that you also have a very successful TikTok account. What made you decide to get on that platform?
Oh, a guy at work, an older feller at work had TikTok back when we were logging together, and Shane was always making videos, and he was known as Mr. TikTok because he was always filming the trucks. And I'm like, I better download and see what Shane's posting about me. Like, he's filming me. I better check this out. And it took me about 6 to 8 months having TikTok before I even had the courage to make a video. I couldn't even talk on a TikTok. I just used the sounds and did like a couple of little dances. It took a long time for me to actually make a TikTok. And then I'm like, oh, you know what? It is fun. And I found it really engaging for the trucker community. It's one of those things that, like, it's become a great source for truckers. TikTok for truckers is fantastic because most of the time, guys, let's be honest, it's a lonely job. You're by yourself all day. It gives you that connection and that community. Even as a business tool, I know so many guys that have started trucking companies off TikTok because they meet the TikTok freight brokers, or the freight brokers meet them, and you can see what the guy's like, how he maintains his truck, what his attitude is towards things. So if you're trying to trust a guy to haul your freight and you're on TikTok, you see what his truck looks like, what his attitude, what his load securement. There's an immediate level of trust that TikTok is kind of built up for the trucker community. Although they seem to hate the trucker community because we get so many community guideline violations, but it's a great platform.
Yeah, I could see that. It's like the dual-edged sword of technology, right? All that information is more readily available, but there's also the benefit on the other side that people have a hard time seeing sometimes, is getting your brand out there, getting the recognition of your skills or talent out there at the same time.
Yeah.
Chace, I just want to say thanks again for joining us today and sharing your knowledge. And a big thank you to our audience for tuning in for another edition of Trucker Tools Talks. Chace, can you tell us how people should connect with you?
Yeah, if anyone wants to follow along the TikTok, we got one for Edison Motors and then my personal one, Chace Barber.
Okay.
That's kind of the best way to reach out. And I'm afraid I'm terrible for checking emails.
I invite the audience that if you have someone in mind that you'd like us to interview or have any questions, use the comments to let us know. Thanks again, Chace.
Oh, thanks for having me on. Have a great day.